Welcome back. It is Super Tuesday today. That means a third of pledged delegates are up for grabs as voters head to the polls in 14 states. It's a big night. Joe Biden gaining key endorsements yesterday from Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg. They both dropped their own bids for the White House and endorsed Biden. Beto O'Rourke also endorsed the former vice president yesterday. No endorsement yet from President Obama. A candidate needs 1,991 delegates to secure the nomination. Joining us right now is pollster and the president of Maslansky and Partners. She is the author of Persuasion, Lee Carter. Great to see you, Lee.
Great to be here.
What are you seeing tonight?
You know, everything that we thought was going to happen, all bets are off right now. I think we thought that Sanders was going to have a very good night tonight. I'm not so sure. But the big question is, where are Klobuchar and Mayor Pete's votes going to go? And I think the assumption is a lot of people are saying they're going to go straight to Biden. I don't think that's necessarily true, because if they were going to go to Biden, they already would. A lot of these people chose the other candidates because Biden was not a good candidate to them. A lot of people felt like he had, he was past his prime, that he had lost it. He wasn't the candidate that they thought he was going to be. And so are those votes going to either stay at home? Are they going to go to Bloomberg? Are they going to go to somewhere else? I'm not exactly sure, but there are certain states that are now going to be at play that weren't at play before. So I'm looking at Texas in particular, where 11 points or 13 points, depending on the polls that you're looking at, are now at play that weren't at play before. So it used to think that Sanders had a comfortable lead with 5 to 7 points. Now I think that's at play. You look at Colorado, Massachusetts, Utah, all of those which were squarely for Sanders now I think are at play.
Mm-hmm. Do you find it ironically that the woke party, the Democratic Party of 2020, its remaining candidates, the major ones, the ones that only have a shot, are 3 old white guys, with Biden being the youngest of the 3?
It is a little bit ironic.
That's good, Joe.
When you put it that way, Joe. Yes, I think it's a little ironic. What I do also think is so fascinating, though, is that Bernie Sanders has really gotten a huge amount of momentum by people saying that he's anti-establishment, the system is rigged against him. This whole move that has happened over the last few days, where you see everybody coalescing around Biden, Bernie's base could really get energized by this. They could really say, enough is enough. We are going to go out there in droves. And if he gets the numbers, if he gets that intensity of support, he could still end up winning beyond what we expect to see. But it's going to be a very close night, some very interesting races to watch. I really think Texas is going to be one of the most fascinating races to watch.
And Texas is red, or?
It's more southern than western, is how I would describe Texas.
It's magenta.
It's magenta.
Yeah. But it has a large percentage of Latino votes, and Sanders has the Latino vote wrapped up because they've been working on it for 4 years. But it's impossible to force feed a candidate if that person is completely unappetizing to the voters. You cannot make it happen.
And when you talk to voters out there, when you talk to folks who said, listen, I wanted to like Biden on paper before I saw him up there on the debate stage, before I saw him in his case, I thought he was a different candidate than he is today. Right now, he seems to yell. He gets so frustrated he can't make his case. They want someone who they think is going to be able to win, and I'm not sure that they feel that he is. I think a lot of people also hope that Bloomberg would come up and be the one that can make the case, and that he could be the one that could win. And then they're seeing him and thinking, wow, he doesn't seem very energetic or exciting or enthusiastic.
Too.
It's all about who they think can take down Donald Trump.
That's exactly
not about the policies, not about this is why this person wants to be president. This is what he's going to bring to the table. We're going to be talking with you a lot. Lee Carter, thank you so much. Be sure to watch Fox Business's live Super Tuesday coverage.